Hello, I'm Claire. In this Study Gurus video, we're going to talk about the 5 things that you need to do to write amazing essays. Essay writing is obviously a really big part of school, and it's a really prominent feature in a lot of exams. And not just exams that are commonly associated with writing essays like English and history. A lot of subjects require you to write essays, even science subjects. For instance, your biology exam might ask you to discuss photosynthesis. Well, that's really just as much of an essay question as a question that asks you to discuss a Shakespeare play. Essay writing can be really daunting for a lot of people, and I think this is because it's more of a nebulous thing than, science or maths and things that you think you can approach more systematically. Essay writing is like for foo-foo subjects, and it's all about ideas and, who knows where to start. But really, you can actually approach essay writing just as systematically, methodically, with as much of a plan as you can approach studying for maths and science. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the 5 things that you can do when you approach essay writing that are going to give your essays beautiful structure and just make the whole process a lot more simple. Number 1 is structure. Do not underestimate the importance of your essays having structure. If this is something you do already, you're probably rolling your eyes at me right now, but I have friends who are teachers and, mark exams for a living, and they are just flabbergasted at the number of essays that sadly don't have structure. And what this does is it makes your essay incredibly hard to read. So it is paramount, without exception, that your every essay you write has an introduction, paragraphs, and a conclusion. Every essay you write must have this. Even a science-based essay should more or less follow the structure of having an introduction, paragraphs, and a conclusion. There are no exceptions to this. Even if the content of your essay isn't amazing because, that subject isn't your favorite or whatever, if your essay has paragraphs, you are already ahead of the pack. Number 2, not only does your whole essay need to have structure, but every individual paragraph needs to have its own structure. So we're not talking about the introduction and conclusion, we're talking about the main body paragraphs of your essay. The structure we follow when we're writing essays is known by an abbreviation called SEXY. SEXY stands for statement, explanation, example, and importance. And in brief, because we'll make a whole video that talks about the SEXY structure in more detail soon, but for now, statement is the opening sentence of your paragraph, which tells the reader what that paragraph is going to be about. What is the point of this paragraph? What is the thing you're going to be talking about? Explanation is the bulk of the paragraph. It's probably about 3 to 5 sentences that actually explains your point. It's where all of the information and content of your essay goes. Academic essays, no matter what the subject, need to back up what is said with evidence. So it's really important that no matter what subject, you're including examples in each of your paragraphs. This could be a fact, a person's name, a particular time in history, anything that gives weight to what you're saying. The last part of your paragraph structure is importance. A really good essay is going to include critical thought and insight. An A+ essay is going to kind of sum up each paragraph with a reason and a statement about why that particular point you've made in that paragraph is important. What does this have to do with the main point you're making in the essay? Why should we care? What is the significance of the thing that you've written about? The third important thing to do to write fabulous essays is to revise them. So obviously when you're in exam, time pressure is really tight. So let's just go back to when you're writing practice essays and essays that you have to write throughout the year. What I like to do when I'm writing essays is write a first draft and then, subject to the amount of time you have, leave it and come back to it later. I'm sure you've done this before, where you've come back to a piece of work the next day or even just a couple of hours later and you've noticed a whole lot of mistakes that you hadn't noticed before. It could be little things like spelling mistakes, or it could be more substantial issues like the structure doesn't make sense, or that whole point doesn't really make sense, or I could write that sentence more clearly. But having some time away from the essay is going to really help. When you come back to it, you've got a fresh pair of eyes and you'll notice that your essay will be improved substantially. Don't just hand in something that's a first draft, because putting in that extra time is going to take your essay from like a C grade to a much higher grade. In an exam when it's all about the time pressure, It's really important to try and plan your time such that you do have a few minutes to read over an essay. Obviously, this might not always be possible because time in exams is just the worst, but we can all try, and the aim should be to read over your essay to find any glaringly obvious mistakes. The fourth thing we highly recommend that you do when you're writing essays is to make an essay plan. Now, an essay plan, this might sound like, oh my goodness, I've got to do something else before I even start writing. But in our experience, they only take about 5 minutes to write, and you get super quick at them the more you practice. And they save you so much time when you're actually writing the essay. And obviously, because you're so time poor in an exam, that is super helpful. An essay plan is simply a really rough guide about what each paragraph of your essay is going to be about. So every time we write an essay, we spend 5 minutes beforehand just jotting down on a piece of paper what the sexy structure of each paragraph is going to be. So what this does, it means before we start writing, we know what each paragraph is going to be about, and we know what order the paragraphs are going to be in. Those are not things that you want to be thinking about when you're writing the essay. You don't want to get halfway through writing and think, oh crap, I really should have written about this point before that point, and you can see how that can just get really messy. Your essay plans do not need to be a work of art at all. They can be scribbles on a piece of paper. And when you're in an exam, hopefully you've got a blank piece of paper that's part of the exam booklet that you can write on. Having this roadmap of what your essay is going to look like is going to save you so much time and stress, so we highly recommend that you start writing essay plans for both your practice essays and when you're in the exam. The fifth thing that you need to do if you want to write amazing essays is practice. Going back to the beginning of this video, as I said, writing essays can seem like this really nebulous and airy-fairy task, but you need to approach it as systematically as you do your maths and your science study. Unless you are a really exceptional student, it's highly unlikely that you're going to be able to develop good essay writing skills overnight. So of course it makes sense that this is something you need to practice when you're preparing for exams. The bulk of our preparation for exams that are mostly essay based or have discussion questions in them, like that biology example I gave earlier, is writing practice essays. It involves sitting down, writing an essay plan, thinking about the points we want to make, and writing a full-length proper essay. This is the only way to get into the swing of knowing how to write an essay and feel comfortable with its structure and all of the things that are involved. So there you have it. There are 5 things that if you do, you will start writing amazing essays in no time.